It's a night before Rosh Hashanah, and that's a kind of serious thing. So nobody laugh for the rest of the event. How can you laugh when I say that? There's something serious I want to discuss with you tonight, but the serious part will be in the last 90 seconds of the class. So it's going to go like this. I want to begin with a request to turn off your car alarms. And please put your phones on vibrate, because some people actually have a custom to fall asleep when a rabbi speaks, and I don't want to risk waking them up. So if you can turn off your phone now, I'd really appreciate that. I want to begin with a Holocaust story. I'm really not going to be standing here all night, so I'll learn how to project. And it's a very serious story. I don't really like telling Holocaust stories because they're interesting in the same way that like watching traffic accidents is interesting. Like they're like exciting and terrifying and awful, and we gravitate to very extreme experiences for emotional stimulus. And a lot of Holocaust stories come with kind of very heavy guilt trips. And this story comes with a really heavy Jewish guilt trip. But I'm not telling you the story for the sake of the guilt trip. I'm telling the story because I want to explore the kind of psychological mechanism of the characters involved. But it does come with a guilt trip. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell the story. In the last second, I'm going to say, duck out of the way of the guilt trip. And then perhaps we can extract something more profound from the experience. So in the Second World War, there was a camp called the Janowska prison camp in Poland. And I know you've heard all these stories before about these work camps and these concentration camps, and we don't need to relive together the atrocities and the pain and the suffering that was in these places. But in this camp, there were two individuals, and it's hard to imagine two more opposite kinds of human beings. The first person, one of the people in the camp, was someone called the Bluzhever Rebbe, called Yisrael Spira. And Yisrael Spira, whatever this word means to you, was a real tzaddik, was a real Rebbe, in the best sense of the term. And the fact that he was a Rebbe in the camp, that was already a chiddush, that was already a surprise, because being a Rebbe was a crime that was punishable by death, or being a Jewish leader, if they found out you were a Jewish leader, they'd basically shoot you on the spot, take you out, torture you, etc. So the fact that he was alive, the only reason he was still alive, because people that knew him in the camp, they made a pact to never ever mention that he was a Jewish leader. So that was one person in the camp. Another person in the camp was someone called Schneeweiss. Now, has anyone ever heard stories about Schneeweiss before? No. So Schneeweiss is a very famous person, or an infamous person, if you will. And Schneeweiss is one of these Jews who was put in charge of the Yidden. He was a Jew who was so full of anger towards other Jews, so self-hating, if you will, that he was given the wonderful role of being in charge of other Jews and keeping them in line. Has everyone heard about these things before? Anyone know the name of what they're called? They're called the capo. So his was, and the Nazis' infinite wisdom of how to kind of tear Jews apart. They would take Jews that hated other Jews and hated Judaism, and they would put them in charge of keeping the Jews in line. Now it happens to be, of all the capos that we know about, the most infamous of them was this guy called Schneeweiss, who was 100% Jewish, but literally was this story after story, heartbreaking story of what a sadist he was. And that he would kill and torture women, and he would kill and torture children, and the incredible atrocities he did, this Jewish guy did. So a story takes place 2 days before Rosh Hashanah. 2 days before Yom Kippur. Wonder why I thought Rosh Hashanah. It was 2 days before Rosh Hashanah, and two men in the camp who know who the Bluzhever Rebbe is, they approach him with the following request. They say, Rebbe, as you know, in 2 days now, it's Yom Kippur. And on Yom Kippur, we're probably going to have to do the usual jobs that we have to do, but we're concerned because, as you know, as we all know together, that just like there's many halachas, laws of things that we can't do on Shabbos, that'll break Shabbos, all those certain things and more apply to Yom Kippur. So these two men come to this Rebbe that they know is the Rebbe with the following request. Rebbe, in 2 days' time is Yom Kippur. And we don't want to break the laws of Yom Kippur. Now, I don't know how a human being who's in that kind of intense environment, struggling for their life and struggling for their sanity, could hold on to any belief in God or any commitment to Torah and mitzvahs. It's totally beyond me personally. So they said, Rebbe, we're wondering if we could request that you would go and request to management that we be reassigned our work tasks on Yom Kippur so we don't have to break Yom Kippur. This was a very reasonable request because the Nazis were, very, very compassionate towards Jewish customs and were very inspired by their tradition. So the Bluja Rebbe did a double take. I don't know what the heck a Rebbe looks like doing a double take, right? But the beard's like, kind of gets beard whiplash. I don't even know what that is. I almost gave myself jaw lash when I did that. He said to the Bluja Rebbe, could you go to management and make the request to Moshe Yom Kippur, can we be reassigned our work tasks in 2 days? And the Rebbe looked at them like they were out of their mind. And they said, no, Rebbe, we know the Nazis would never do it. But Shnei Weiss, after all, is Jewish. And every Jew, we used to be able to say maybe 20 years ago, today I don't know if that's true. I don't know if this is true in Tel Aviv. Every Jew, at least back then, even if they were completely disconnected from their heritage, Yom Kippur was still Yom Kippur, Pesach was still Pesach. So that surely Shnei Weiss would appreciate at least Yom Kippur. Obviously, they were a delusional state. So the Rebbe stops to think about this request. Now think about his dilemma for a second. Number one, if he goes to Shnei Weiss and makes this request, first of all, the answer is no. Second of all, inside information that he knew and they didn't know, that the Rebbe actually knew Shnei Weiss from before the war. And the Rebbe knew Shnei Weiss's whole story. And the fact that the Rebbe was alive was only because, with great Siyata D'Shmaya, heavenly help, that the Shnei Weiss had never actually made eye-to-eye contact with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe had his beard torn off when he entered the camp. So the only reason the Rebbe was alive because he ducked out of Shnei Weiss's way the whole time, and Shnei Weiss never realized that the Rebbe was the Rebbe. So if the Rebbe were to walk into the room and say, hi, just open his mouth, Shnei Weiss looks up, makes eye contact, the Rebbe would be dead on the spot. So the Rebbe thought to himself, there's no way I can do this. But the challenge as a Jewish leader is he has to say, if I don't do this, because at the end of the day, I know we may not relate to these values, but just think of the personal struggle of these people with their beliefs, and that's an extraordinary situation. He said to himself, he knew that if these two Jews are in some crazy situation called a Holocaust camp, are still trying on the holiest day of the year to hold on to something, and they come to me for help, what's the purpose of my life if I don't try and help? If I walk away from it, if I'm too overcome by my fear and I don't stand up for my own beliefs, what's the purpose of my life? So he decides to do it. So he walks across the camp and he walks towards Shnei Weiss's office. And he steps up onto the floorboards and he walks towards the door and he takes a deep breath. And he realized this may be the last minute of his life. And he thinks, if I have to go down, at least I'll go down, trying to fight for this truth and trying to fight for the integrity of our beliefs. And he knocks on the door. Come in! The Rebbe opens the door, and there's Shnei Weiss directly opposite the door, at his desk, just writing. Of course, Shnei Weiss knows he's a Jew and doesn't want to acknowledge his, existence, his humanity, by looking him in the eye. So he just says, what do you want? And the Rebbe walks into the room, he's standing in front of the desk, and he's so petrified to open his mouth, because he's in the room, he's in front of him, and he knows the second he opens his mouth, Shnei Weiss will look up, eye contact, dead. So the Rebbe's trying to get the words out of his mouth, and he can't open his mouth. And he's like... And finally, the words come out of his mouth. Now, if you had to write the script and you were the Rebbe, you wouldn't write these words. But he heard the words come out of his mouth, and the words were, Shnei Weiss, look at me now. Imagine saying that. That was wrong. Can we just cut that? Can I come outside and come into the door again? Could I rephrase that a little? Shnei Weiss says, what did you say? You're ordering me? And Shnei Weiss looks up and says, what did you... And the second he looks up, the second he makes eye contact, bing, the penny drops, the light goes on. And the Rebbe realizes the clock is ticking. It's now or never. Shnei Weiss, look at me. You know who I am. We've known each other a long time, haven't we? I've come to you today with a request. And I know this is a crazy request, but I'm asking this with all my heart. 2 men approached me, and they said, as you know, that Shnei Weiss, tomorrow is Yom Kippur. The 3 of us would like to request that you reassign our work assignments on Yom Kippur so we don't have to break the laws of Yom Kippur. Shnei Weiss just stares at the Rebbe. Not a word, not a comment, nothing. The Rebbe begins to panic. Shnei Weiss, do you hear me? I'm begging with all my heart. You know how much it means to these people. It doesn't matter what you've done up till now. Listen to me, Shnei Weiss. I'm begging you. Shnei Weiss says, I heard your request. I'll think about it. Get out. Now the Rebbe realizes it's a setup. The Rebbe realizes that Shnei Weiss doesn't want to shoot a man in his face. So the second the Rebbe turns around, he's going to get a bull in his back. So the Rebbe starts pleading, screaming, Shnei Weiss, listen to me. I know this is crazy, but you have one opportunity. I want you to think about this. I heard your request. I'll think about it. Get out. The Rebbe takes a breath. He's done what he can do. And he realizes this may be the last conscious move he makes in his life. He turns around and he turns towards the door. No bullet. He walks towards the door, puts his hand on it. No bullet. He opens the door, walks through the door, closes the door behind him. No bullet. Now he realizes now that he's walked out, Shnei Weiss is going to get up, he's going to go to SS offices, they're going to call all the inmates together in the camp, they're probably going to torture him in public, and he walks, the death march by himself across the camp. And he gets back to the barracks, and he walks in, the 2 men walk up to him into the dormitories, and they say, what did he say? What did he say? And the Rebbe's just in shock. The Rebbe says, he said, he'll think about it. And they're like, what do you mean he'll think about it? He just said, leave, he'll think about it. You left, that's it? You know what he's going to do now? The Rebbe said, I know he's going to do that. And they sat there, they were terrified, they did tshuva, so they said the Shema, and they waited. Night came, nobody came. The next day, nobody had come. They waited, petrified all day. Nobody came. That doesn't make any sense. Yom Kippur arrived. Now, I don't know if you know about this, but the Nazis knew more about Jewish customs and knew about Jewish rituals than many Jews around today do. And the Nazis would celebrate the Jewish festivals, especially Yom Kippur, by torturing the Jews even more. And the second Yom Kippur fell, to stop the Jews from thinking about Yom Kippur and holiness, they were marched into a small city nearby. I believe it was Lvov. And they were taken out to a field. They were all given shovels. They were told to dig graves, dig holes. By about 2 o'clock in the morning, after exhaustion, after being beaten, many of them were just strafed with guns, and they fell into their own graves. There were people who are alive today that still have the scars from that night. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, exhausted, depleted, they arrived back in the barracks, in the dormitories, and they collapsed down on the beds, and the Rebbe collapses down on his bed. And as he does, a few men come up to them and said, Rebbe, please don't go to sleep. We have to daven Kol Nidra. And the Rebbe's like, these men they can't daven. This is not a night for davening. The men are finished, they're exhausted, they're heartbroken. Rebbe, please. No. The Rebbe said that people, they don't know the prayers. They don't know. One of them said, I know something. I remember this part. I can daven that part. I can. And the men started hearing Kol Nidra. We're going to please. We need to. Tonight is the holiest night of the year for Rachav and God's compassion. If ever we needed compassion, now we need compassion. So the Rebbe jumps up, and the Rebbe doesn't know how to respond. The Rebbe begins to lead the service, and they lead the service, and they pray for an hour. And the reports that we hear from that night is there were many, many men in those barracks. They came in, they heard that the Jews were in barracks number 12. They were praying, they were davening, and they were in the room. If you imagine this, they said there was not a noise because they were screaming, silent screams. 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, the men collapsed in their bed, unconscious, tired, exhausted, finished. Good night. Listen to this. This is a weird story. This is an intense story you're going to hear now. And this is a true story. The next morning, Yom Kippur morning, around 1943 or 1944, the Rebbe awakens on his back, on his bed, Have you ever had this before? You know when you're awake and you know you're awake, but your eyes are still closed? So he wakes up and he's awake and his eyes are still closed, and he has this incredible fear of death come over him. Like something terrible is about to happen, and he doesn't want to open his eyes. And he sits there for a few seconds, psyching himself up, trying to open his eyes. And he even has this moment of saying Shema in his mind. And finally, imagine he's on the back, on these boards, right, on the bed, squashed in with a bunch of other men. And he opens his eyes, and there he sees Shnei Weiss is standing right on top of him looking down. And his whole body braces for the blow. And Shnei Weiss says to him, I heard the men were praying in the barracks last night. And this time, the Rebbe is totally silent. And Shnei Weiss says, you know that prayer in this camp is a crime punishable by death. And the Rebbe is totally silent. And Shnei Weiss looks him in the eyes and says, I admire your courage. He says, grab those two men, only those two men, right now, not a single other person, and come with me. Shnei Weiss turns around and walks out the door. The Rebbe's in totally shocked. He doesn't know what's going, but his body jumps out of the bed. Right? And he quickly runs through the room trying to find the two other men. He wakes them up. Shmuley, what's happening? Shh, come with me. What's happening? Shh, come with me. And he grabs them out of the bed. The men are like stumbling. They're semi-conscious. They don't know what's happening. They open up the door and the sunlight of the morning bursts in. Their eyes are still closed and they're squinting. And they run out and they realize what's happening. He said he's going to grant us a wish. He's going to grant the wish. And they open their eyes and they see Shnei Weiss is walking across the camp. And they fall out of the beds and they fall off the boardwalk. And they start running after him. And they're running after him. They're going, is this possible? Is this possible? This is insane. It can't be. He really is going to fulfill their request. And he's running behind. They're running behind them, and they run up behind him panting. He doesn't even turn around. He knows they're behind them, and they're just following. This is amazing. You ever been in the situation where your body's moving forward, and you have this perfect momentum forward, and you know where you're going, but suddenly they look up and realize where they're going, and Shnei Weiss is going straight to the SS commander's hut. And they're going, no, wait a second, this is ridiculous. What are we doing? And they don't even know. Should they turn their bodies around? They're still half awake, half asleep. And Shnei Weiss walks up the steps onto the planks, onto the boardwalk, and they follow up. But rather than going to the SS officer's door, he turns right, and they follow him around the hut, and they go to another hut, and they go behind that hut to a little hut at the back of the whole camp. And Shnei Weiss turns the key, unlocks the door, walks inside. It's completely empty. He throws two rags down the floor, one up near the window. He says, you two can clean here. Rebbe, you can clean there. I granted your request. And they're just in shock. The two men fall to their knees. They start just doing this with their hands. It's not breaking anything, but Rebbe just does with his hand. They can't believe this happened. How could this have happened? This is unbelievable. I wish I could tell you that was the end of the story. The men spent all morning praying, pretending to clean and pray, until around 12 o'clock, the following thing happened. And this is very intense. And this is a true story. At the end, I'll tell you why we know it's a true story. The men are cleaning, and they start to hear sounds of footsteps in the distance. And they start to hear around 1 o'clock in the afternoon the sound of this kind of metal wheels turning, like some kind of metal trolley, a rusty metal trolley. And they don't know what it is, the sound of these wheels turning, and they hope it's nothing coming in their direction. But after a minute, they realize it is coming in their direction. And they hear it coming up on the boards outside, and they hear it getting closer, these stomping boots. And this trolley sounding thing with wheels. And suddenly around 1 o'clock, there's keys at the door. And the door gets unlocked, and the door opens. And into the room walks two SS officers with a trolley. And on the trolley, there's these big, big pots. Big, big pots of food. And in one pot is this incredible soup full of meat, and there's potatoes, and there's duck, and there's this fresh bread that's come out of the oven. And the SS officer gleefully announces, my brothers, my Jewish brothers, my Jewish friends, in honor of your big Jewish festival, we've prepared a feast for your lunch today. Now, do I have to explain this to you, you guys? Who's hungry? So you can imagine this? Imagine what the moment's like. The Nazi opens up the first bowl. Inside is this fresh bread. He cracks it open a little, and the waft fills the room. And the second there's this meat. I mean, the only time they've smelt these smells is, before the occupation 5, 6, 7 years ago, or in their dreams. And they're starving. All they've eaten is one rotten potato floating in a bowl of hot, gooey water for weeks, months, years at a time. And their whole bodies are having this kind of visceral response of desire and repulsion all at the same time, and they don't know how to respond. So the Nazi grabs the bowl, and he puts the vegetables in, and he puts a bit of soup in, and he gets a bit of the fresh bread, and he gets a bit of the meat. And he said, who would like to begin to partake of this feast in honor of your Jewish holy festival? So he looks around, there's this old guy with at the window, and there's these two men on the floor, and he walks up to these two men on the floor. And he walks up to the one of them right there. And imagine how vulnerable the situation is. They're down there on the floor like this. And the Nazi walks up with the bowl like this and puts it right in his face. He probably wants to bury his face in it. That would probably be the normative human response. And the Nazi looks at him with a bowl in his face, like that close, and says, Bon appetit, or whatever the heck they say in German. And the man looks at the food, and he looks at the bread, and it's coming in through his nose, and he can't stop it. And he looks up at the Nazi, and he looks up at the Rebbe. He looks back to the food. He looks back to the Nazi and just goes. And the Nazi says, Jew, don't be an idiot. You're starving. Eat the food. And the Jew wants to believe him with all his might, wants to believe it's okay. Looks at the food, looks at the Rebbe, looks back at the Nazi. Jew, who are you fasting for? Look at what's happening to your people. You don't really think there's a God. You don't really think he cares about stuff. Where is your God? Where is your Savior? Don't be an idiot. Save your own life. Maybe you have strength to live another day. Maybe you have the strength to live through this concentration camp. Don't be an idiot. Eat the food. Stares at the bowl. Stares at the food. Looks up at the Nazi. Says no. The Nazi says, you dirty Jewish dog, puts his hand in his holster, pulls out a gun, puts it to his forehead, and says, eat the food or I'll blow your brains out. The Jew looks down the barrel of the gun, looks down, looks up, says no. The Nazi says, eat the food, I'll blow your brains out. The Jew looks down the barrel, looks at the Nazi, says no. Suddenly the Nazi goes to pull the trigger, sees the Jew doesn't flinch, lifts his hand, smashes it across his face. The Jew is bleeding blood, the blood's falling down his face, pouring onto the plate, and says, eat the food now, or I'm going to kill you. The Jew just says no. And the Nazi is furious and doesn't know how to respond. And he says, eat the food. And the Jew says no. Eat the food. The Jew says no. He says, eat the food. The Jew says no. At that point, the Nazi doesn't know what to do. He looks back, he goes, oh, now I know what to do. He turns around to the door, and he screams at the door, Schneeweiss, get in here, now! The door opens up. Guess who walks into the room? Schneeweiss. What's the line? A picture tells 1,000 words. He doesn't know what's happening, but he walks into the room, and there's the Rebbe, and there's the two men on the floor, there's the blood pouring down, there's the food on the plate. The Nazi turns to Schneeweiss at the door and says, tell this Jew to eat the food or I'm going to kill him. Schneeweiss turns to the Jew and says, he will kill you. Don't be an idiot. Eat the food. And the Jew just shakes his head. And Schneeweiss says, eat the food, he'll kill you. And the Nazi says, tell him to eat the food, make him eat the food, or I'm going to kill him. And Schneeweiss says, I'm telling him, eat the food. The Nazi is saying, tell him to eat the food. And Schneeweiss turns back to the Nazi and says, today is Yom Kippur, it's their day of atonement. They're not going to eat on Yom Kippur. And the Nazi says, tell him he's going to eat, I'm going to kill him. And Schneeweiss turns to him and says, you're not proving anything, there's no God, there's no Torah, there's nothing. Just eat the food, save your own life. And the man says no, and the Nazi says, I'm going to kill him. And Schneeweiss turns back to the Nazi and says, today is Yom Kippur, today is their day of atonement. they're not going to eat on Yom Kippur. And Father the Nazi says, fine, fine, fine. And at that moment, the Nazi picks up his gun, he turns towards Shnei Weiss, he walks over him to the bowl of food and says, why don't you show them how? There is Shnei Weiss, a beloved sadistic brother who's tortured, killed, man, woman, and child. Not just one time, for years. That's been his position. And in that moment, there's a gun to his head on that day of Yom Kippur. And he looks at the Nazi, and he looks at the food, and he looks at the two Jews on the floor. He looks at the Rebbe. He looks back to the Nazi, he looks back down the gun. And he looks the Nazis in his eyes. And his final words were, today is Yom Kippur. Today is our Day of Atonement. We Jews don't eat on Yom Kippur. Bang. Brains are blown out and falls to the floor dead. Don't get a guilt trip. I warned you. The Pluzhev Rebbe and the two men both survived the war, lived decades. Can you imagine how many times they told that story? I have a question for you. I have a journey for you. I have a message for you. I have a lesson we all have to learn together. But it begins with a question right now. How do you explain what happened there? And I hope you're thinking Jews. I hope you're thoughtful, reflective Jews. Not like us brainwashed Haredim in Jerusalem. Hopefully, here you can do a little better. And I'm going to begin with a question. It's a serious question. How strange that a man would be willing to die for a cause that he wasn't willing to live for. How can it be that if you think who this person was, for years talk about a self-hating Jew to the level of extreme violence, extreme pain? There's no God, there's no truth, there's no meaning. I will kill, I will torture, and a second later be willing to take a bullet in the head for it. How strange that a person is willing to die for a cause that they're not willing to live for. How do you explain what happened to Shnei Weiss? That's not a rhetorical question. Do you have a theory? Hands up if you have a theory. Are people emotionally comfortable with sharing their theories in Tel Aviv? We're cool with that. We're not afraid of being stoned or something. You guys can handle that. Hands up if you have a theory. Hands up if you're a person who likes to think about stuff, occasionally develop your own thoughts. I'm very impressed. Who would like to share? This girl here. What's your name? Tal Or? Whoa. Yes.
I think that is a really great story that shows the sense that there's no atheists in foxholes.
There's no atheist in the foxhole. Fine. But, okay.
He was afraid of death. I think that if I'm looking at it from my perspective, that this man, even if he was self-loathing and sadistic, did a lot of stuff that he couldn't sleep well at night.
Right.
And the Day of Atonement also serves, while it also serves for holy people to purify themselves and become closer to God,
Right.
it also serves as an awesome platform for really evil people to say they've cleansed themselves and they've...
An awesome platform for evil people. Yom Kippur. I want to get that on my t-shirt. I'm going to walk through Tel Aviv saying Yom Kippur, an awesome platform for evil people. You should help me rebrand Judaism. We would do a great job together. This is very interesting. So it's no atheist in a foxhole scenario. It's the power of Yom Kippur. That's weird and Kabbalistic, too weird and Kabbalistic for me. But there's some kind of platform going on there. That's one explanation. Now, as we go through explanations, I want you to know we don't really know what happened to him, right? It's not really for us to say, and we have no clue. But as intelligent thinking people, we're allowed to try and understand. That's okay. Thank you, Tal Or. Who else would like to? Yes. Name, sir? That's boring. What about Shemayim Shemesh, something like that? Better. We can do one. She'll rebrand you. We'll get a better name. Yes, Ari. Don't give me themes. I hate that rabbinical themes. Could you give me a non-religious answer? Can we not be religious? I'm sick of hanging around religious people. Why do you think I'm here? Right? I'm very serious, Ari. I know I have a black hat on and the beard kind of pushes me one direction. It's a very weird phenomenon. Can we understand on a psychological level what happened? I mean, I'm missing out part of a story. Right when they put a gun to head, they said, would you die for the truth? And we obviously know the answer is no. At that moment, he was invited on a birthright 2-week tour of Israel. And he was taken to the Kotel and danced with soldiers and got drunk in Tel Aviv and partied in the desert with camels. And then came back, put a gun to his head. Okay, I'll go again on a 3-week extension tour. Fine. So you have to understand what we're saying. Again, psychologically speaking, you're not wrong, right? But I think that there's a risk that we use religious terms and dogma, right? But we stop reflecting on ourselves. What's really happening there? I mean, his entire belief system was totally the opposite. Once I taught this class and someone said, well, he sit and he thought through. He finally thought through to himself what is right and what is wrong. Has anyone ever had a gun to the head before? Anyone been in a life or death situation? What were you thinking when a person put a gun to your head? What's the answer? The answer is nothing at all. The body, technically, scientifically speaking, floods with so much adrenaline, all the intellectual capacity is basically taken down. There's no capacity to rethink your value system. You guys see what I'm saying? So take religion aside. I believe in religion. I'm into that stuff. But I'm just saying, as some of my best friends are religious, right? I know it's hard to believe. Why would you want religious friends? But the idea on a very basic level is, can we understand on a basic psychological level what happened to that individual? Yes, ma'am?
I think he was really
Moved by what?
by two men who actually doing something they really believe in, that really,
He was moved by what he witnessed. Now, I appreciate that because I think it was moving to us. But I want to challenge you. How much could the information and your beliefs shift in a second? How many years have you spent in therapy? Not you, but your friends that are messed up. Spent in therapy to unravel a lifetime of build-ups of beliefs, of emotional patterns. Wouldn't you want that gun to the head kind of therapy that can turn you around in 1 second? The Tanya actually discusses that. That's actually possible, by the way. But I want to understand the psychological mechanism, how it takes place. Lady at the back, what's your name? Vanessa?
I think that what happened is that at the end of the day, he was a Jew, and even though he did all these atrocities, he connected to himself. At the end of the day, like what he was saying, there is no intellectual connection of his head. He's not really intellectualized.
At the end of the day, he's a Jew. I totally get this. I've given classes on that. I want to break it down to something which makes this power accessible. I want to explain to you a mechanism of consciousness that you don't need to believe in God or Torah or mitzvahs or any of that stuff to understand. What you all said is right. I totally believe with all my heart it's true. But it puts it as something weird. I know I'm a Jew. I know there's that power. But we miss the most basic idea of how we can access the truth within this. Listen very carefully. The Rambam writes in the laws of Tshuva on Rosh Hashanah, Af al pi shetekiyas shofar b'Rosh Hashanah gezeres akasav. Even though the Torah just says about blowing a shofar, it doesn't give us an explanation in the Torah. And the greatest mystical writings of tradition is full of unbelievable supernatural insights about what it is, about the power that it has. But the Rambam breaks it down to the most basic level, the most basic understanding, which Kabbalistically is also, of course, deeply true. He says, despite the fact that Torah doesn't say it, Im kol zeh remez yesh boy. There's a secret in it, there's a hint to it, it's obvious. And the answer, the reason, the power of the shofar, the power of that moment has a transformative power in your life. If you will, it's the spiritual equivalent of having a gun put to your head. But not for the bad, for the power of the good. And the line he says is, Uru yeshenim mesheneschem. Wake up, sleepers, from your sleep. You are sleeping. And wake up from your slumber. And search through all your actions. And return in tshuva. There's two forms of tshuva, as the Baal Tanya teaches us. As the tshuva, I ate pork chops, I wish I didn't eat pork chops, I regret eating pork chops, I'll never eat pork chops again. What bracha do I make on these pork chops, Rabbi? But there's a tshuva about not incidental things we do wrong. But the tshuva is about a return to our soul, return to ourself, an awakening. V'zichu b'reichem, and remembering our Creator, remembering an infinite source above us, around us. To these people that have forgotten the truth, behevle man, in the vanities and chaos of this world, of the technology, of science, of the world, of accomplishment, of a business, of relationships. And I err, and I'm asleep, and my life is spent not focused on the depth of who I am because I'm asleep. And the power of the shofar is there to awaken us. And this is not a Devar Torah. This is a psychological mechanism. And as the shofar sounds, there's something you could do in your mind and heart at that moment, which is supposed to have, and I'm going to say to you, I don't like saying this stuff, I want you to know that what I'm telling you right now worked in my life. It's possible to change big, overwhelming, difficult things literally in a second. And in 48 hours, we're going to have a little less the opportunity to do that. And I want you to know the little basics of the thought behind that, of what you're supposed to be connected to at that moment. And I want to explain, what does it mean to be asleep? What does it mean to, these are very nice, beautiful, poetic, spiritual imageries, ideas of sleep and awake. But I want to explain it psychologically, so it's practical, so it's real, so it's tangible. You could understand this even on a supernatural level. What happened to our good friend Schneeweiss? Zeichet Tzadik Levacha. That's what we say about a person that dies Kiddush Hashem. Isn't that interesting? Is something called in the Kabbalistic writings Da'at Begalut. As we say in Yeshiva, Da'as Begalas. Translation for all the black hats in the room. Anyone translate these words? What does da'at mean? Knowledge. That's why we don't connect to our own heritage. In modern Hebrew, what does da'at mean? Knowledge? What's that? What would you say? Mind. Okay, interesting. What's galut? Exile. So in Kabbalah and Chassidut, it actually says, what happened to Schneeweiss is a very interesting phenomena, and it's called Dat Begalut. Now, the best translation we have of Das is, we don't have a good translation. I can say something about mindful awareness, about true, pure consciousness. But the lamest thing happening in our religion right now is we use Hebrew words and we all assume we know what they mean, and we don't know what they mean. So the best translation is usually experience. So tonight I want to explain to you what happened to Schneeweiss. Why would a crazy guy die for truth he wasn't willing to live for? Well, you're going to see that what he did is not so far from what we do, not just once in our life, but every week and sometimes every day of our life. And it's a mechanism in consciousness called dat, that our das, goes into exile. Where does it go? It goes to Babylonia, it goes to America. What does exile mean? It's a geographical state. What is the definition of exile? Does anyone know? So I'm going to now spend the rest of the class, the next 3.5 hours. Why are you laughing? Didn't tell them? Joking. 3 hours. And I want to explain to you something really, really awesome and really, really profound. I want to explain to you what happened to Shnei Wise by showing how this happens to you. And to understand that, we have to mean, what does it mean to be asleep? And what it means to be asleep, Sheina is bechinas dat begalut. Consciousness in exile. Listen very carefully. I teach around the world. I teach thousands and thousands of Jews each year. Sometimes the Jews come to Israel and I teach on those excursions and those trips. And many times I go around the world. And it's amazing to know that even in this exile, people are still thirsting for knowledge. Even, these wonderful brothers and sisters that come on the birthright trips, or they come on all these kind of trips. Now, why do they come on a birthright trip? So we don't really want to ask. I'd like to think is they want to come close to their heritage and Torah. I know it's because they were bribed with money, with sushi, with that pretty girl's also coming, right? Right, come and see your heritage. Your heritage is this beach with this girl in Tel Aviv. That's my heritage. Now I want to get close to my Creator. So at the end of the day, there's many kind of complex reasons why people come. But at the end of the day, when you meet these people and you meet these individuals, the truth is that every person is looking for some kind of wisdom. We're all searching for some kind of information. If you're honest with yourself for 5 seconds, you know we are lacking. We are lacking. We want to be happy. We don't feel fulfilled. You don't have to believe in God and Torah and truth or anything to understand this. I'm in relationships. We all know relationships are really hard. They're really hard if you're going through true depth and meaning connection. It's hard to make it work. It's hard to make it work consistency. It's hard to know if it's the right one. When we want to make money, we want to be successful, we also want balance. It's hard to find that balance. So if you're smart, if you're a life hacker, which I think is the most awesome term on the planet right now, then what you're going to look for is a way to crack the code. You're looking for information because we all carry this assumption that what fundamentally stops me from living my potential is I don't quite yet know something. I'm missing some information. And I have to go to some kind of class, some kind of Jewish event, and I have to get that information. I have to download from that website. I have to find it on Wikipedia. I have to pay for a seminar, and I have to watch that video. I have to read that book. I have to get that college degree, and I have to find the answers to how to do things better. And we go through life with an assumption that what we're inherently lacking is information and knowledge. And if I could only be mashed, if I only get that information and knowledge, then I would be fulfilled, and then I would find that happiness. And I want to tell you, even though I don't want to put myself out of a job, because I'm very happy teaching that knowledge and teaching that wisdom. I'm so happy that people come out, even the night before Rosh Hashanah, to hear this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's not true. And at the end of the day, it's a dangerous illusion. That the thing you are missing is information. The thing you are missing is knowledge. And I'll put it to you in the most basic, poshut way I can possibly can. Imagine that everyone in the world, in all of the world, forget about the world, everyone in Tel Aviv, everyone in this room, would from this day forward never learn another new piece of information again, not another insight about psychology, not another insight about relationships, another insight, even religious, about Shabbos or anything. Imagine every one of us would never learn another new piece of information again, but we would just learn to all live up to that to which we already know is true. Wouldn't that be a totally different world? Imagine you didn't go to another class, another new insight, another new information, with even all the beauty and information of Torah. Imagine you didn't get it. But imagine you just took all that stuff you already know to be true and just learned to turn it on. That would be revolutionary. And the flip side of that is we could all learn all those self-help books and all those relationship books, and forgive me for saying, go to all those Torah classes and fill our minds with unbelievable information and not be one step closer to a better world. Because the biggest challenge is not the information we're lacking, it's the connection we're not making between the head and the heart. Do you guys get what I'm saying? This is the root of the Jewish school of Musa, and we have to discuss what this is about. Hands up if you get what I'm saying. Hands up if you agree with what I'm saying. Thanks for that very high level of audience interaction. I really appreciate it. Can I illustrate this to you in a more visceral? Can we do something a little weird? Are you guys up for weird? It's Tel Aviv. You came to live in weird, right? Don't blame me. Okay, fasten your seatbelts. Click. I want to illustrate something to you very, very deep tonight. But to illustrate this to you, I can't teach you the information. You have to get this in your gut. You have to get this in your kishkas. And I want to do an exercise with you, and they get progressively weirder, you've been warned. I want to show you what I mean, and I'm going to build you through level and level, and I'm going to take you to a level of very profound insight, but not with the information, with the experience. I'm not here, this is not a class in dogma, I'm not trying to prove anything to you. I just want to show you what's happening within your own inner world. I think the best thing you can ever give a student is the empowerment to understand their own inner reality, because from there, if they're in jail, they can break out themselves. Otherwise, I'm just throwing words on you and ideas on you, and even if they're good, they're all fancy, they disappear in a second. So I want to show you what it means. Why don't we just do what we know to be true? What really stops us? I don't know. So I want you to do an exercise. I can't make you do this. I'm not here to make you do this. I'm just here to offer you an opportunity, facilitate an experience for you. If you want to do this, if you want to get something profound, you'll see it's profound as I build this, then work with me. I want everyone to think right now of one example in your own life of something you know to be true, something you know you should do, something you know is totally the right thing to do, but you never ever do it, or hardly ever do it, or certainly don't do it enough. I want you to not go, yeah, I get that. But no, I want you to be very, very, very specific. I want you to think of one which is really messing up your life, that you feel really dumb about, of something you know is right, not because a rabbi told you, something you know from your own self is true, a real value of how you should interact with other people, or a habit you need to break, or something which is blowing your life, something you know to be true, but you don't do it. Hands up if you've got one. Hands up if you've got more than one. Trick question. Hands up if you don't have one and you're in deep denial. Wake up, sleeper, from your sleep. That's the end of the class. Thank you. Joke. Really? That was it? A little anticlimactic? Should have quitted the Holocaust story. I need everyone to think of an example of this. One example of something you really know to be true, a belief that you really have, a value that you hold dear, but you see yourself keep not doing it, and it's like ridiculous. Hands up if you're brave enough to share it. Hands up if you could share one. Just one person. What's your name? Mandy. We were hoping you'd share. Yeah. Actually, these aren't audience, they're actually actors. This is just an intervention to get you to confront your issue. I told you she'd fall for it. Jay, you owe me $5. Mandy.
I think it's respect.
Wait. Before you volunteer, I just have to set everyone else up. Hands up if Mandy's willing to go, that you can go too. Fine. They're leverage, Mandy. You see what you helped us out with? That was really fantastic.
Respecting others' time. I'm late.
You're late all the time.
Yeah.
That's not nice.
Yeah. I want to respect other people's time.
Okay, so you're late, and how do they respond when you're late?
I think people are used to it.
We never liked her anyway. Blow another relationship. How do you feel when you see that they're frustrated by that?
I feel frustrated with myself.
Frustrated with yourself?
Yeah, it's like really, then it makes me, I don't know, I just get frustrated with myself.
That's
I know
hard.
I can do it.
Okay, fine. So Mandy is late, and that's awful. Great. Who else would like to play? That's one. Give me another one. Who else can play this game? Yes. What's your name, ma'am? Hannah.
Okay, well, I'm a vegetarian.
Okay.
I have been for most of my life since I was a small child.
Okay.
For love of animals, ideological reasons, something that I saw very traumatic when I was young that influenced me.
Okay.
I have to say this is a personal decision. I'm not persuading
You
anyone
don't have to be
else.
apologetic.
Right.
Can I cancel that burger for tonight, guys?
I
Yes.
think I should be vegan, like my sister, if I truly want to.
As opposed to vegetarian.
As opposed to
This is the discussion.
yeah.
Okay.
If I feel I'm a bit of a hypocrite being a vegetarian. Really, if I want
Right.
to really live up to my beliefs.
Go all the way. Be consistent.
And fairness to animals and to.
If I hold that it's true enough to be vegetarian, why won't I go all the way vegan? And do you feel bad when you eat something as disgusting as an egg?
Well, I do my best. I eat free range, so I do.
Free range.
At least,
We're free range. Please kill us. Please us all. Eat us all.
I do feel I'm being hypocritical because
It's hypocritical.
the dairy industry is as radical.
It's pretty scary. It is scary. I did some of that research once.
So basically, I think I should go.
Okay, so good. We have Hannah. We have Mandy. Who's got a really harsh one? Who's got someone which is like something that they know they really shouldn't? That's really, I'm sure it's real for them. The hands are, this lady at the back, still going. What's your name? Batya. Batya, can you... Basha, right. No, I'm calling you Batya. Don't argue with me, I'm a rabbi. Yes. Yes, Basha, yes.
I'm diabetic and I love sweets and I eat too much.
Oh my gosh. She said she loves pork chops on Yom Kippur. Really? What is this, a church and confession? Do I look like a priest to you? Right. That's right. That's what Jane said. I got out of it. Basha said that she's a diabetic and she eats sweets. Which I shouldn't. I hear this. That's intense because it's... Exactly. This is whiskey. I totally get that. Totally get that. Chassidim, you're right, it's vodka. I'm totally... Is there one man that can play this game with us? Do men have emotions here in Tel Aviv? You guys do emotions? What's your name? Josh. Hi.
I should probably smoke less weed.
I guess I set myself up for it, didn't I? You know, when we do this in Jerusalem, it's totally different kind of stuff. I was in the bathroom and I had to change my clothes and I took off my tzitzis for 2 seconds. Rabbi, save my soul, please. Smoke weed. Should you do that? Shouldn't you do that?
Okay, so it's hard to say yes or no.
I understand. Can I share? Can you pass it back over here? Motivation. Do you do it always in motivation? No. What is the consequence of not smoking weed and motivate? This is not religious dogma. Remind me your name? Josh. For you, Josh, what is the negative consequence in your life you would wish to avoid, but you don't because there's no motivation there?
Wasted time and lack of motivation itself.
It kills your motivation. I can definitely talk about that for a long time. That's true. And it causes suffering. Does it affect your relationships with people ever?
Probably, yeah.
Probably. Okay. Fine. I'm going to heal Josh tonight. And after I heal Josh, we're going to go to Mandy, we're going to go to Hannah, we're going to go to Bashia and Jane. Josh, are you ready to be cured? If you want to toke up before we begin, really. Just come to the front for a second. Can we have a round of applause to Josh? Coming down. It's really wonderful to have everyone in the... Josh, hi. Come and sit in the chair. Okay, Josh, we're going to heal you. Ready? So Josh smokes weed. You guys have no idea what that is, isn't it? You know, like when there's grass and beautiful flowers, there's all this green weeds around? He smokes it. Crazy people from Tel Aviv. So that's what I'm rabbi. That's what they told me in yeshiva. So it goes like this. I'm going to heal Josh of his fact because it's true. I do have good friends that have had this issue. There is, I'm not talking bad as religion, there is a strong negative consequence to smoking weed. There's pleasure and there's release, and it's a way that people deal with stress, and there's all these kind of things, but it does affect your long-term capacity to motivate yourself, to be structured and disciplined. It's a way of avoiding dealing with emotional pain and anxiety, etc., and it can deeply affect your motivation, your capacity to perform at a high level, to accomplish great accomplishments, to build relationships. And I think a real guy, Josh is a real guy, he's honest enough to put up his hand, so he's aware of these things. So as a rabbi, I can heal all the people all the time, and tonight I'm going to prove that by dealing with Josh. Are you ready? Okay. Put your feet flat on the floor. Sit up with your back straight. Okay. I want you to look me in the eye. I want you to take 2 deep breaths, inhale and exhale. You ready, Josh? Great. I want you to think about smoking weed. You ready? Stop it! That's disgusting! Why are you smoking weed? It's like drugs, dude! Don't do it! You idiot! You're messing up your life! You're messing up your life! Stop it! And breathe, inhale. And exhale.
Okay, I'll give you something.
Right, okay. Josh, how do you feel?
Great.
Whoa, he's healed! Whoa, woo! Woo! Whoa, whoa, whoa. He was blind and now he can see. Wow. Now for only $500 for over 3 months, you too. Josh, are you healed? Seriously, are you healed? No. Do you think that really helped? Honestly. You have to think about it. That's the marijuana mind churning through information. I think I see the clogs turned there. Joking. Listen very carefully. It didn't really help, right? It didn't do anything. You know why it didn't help? Because I didn't yell loud enough. You idiot! You idiot! You're failing! You're blowing your relationship! You're blowing your life! You'll never come to anything! You're wasting your time! Your mother, your father, they love you! They brought you into this world! And you're blowing it! You're blowing it! You idiot! And breathe. And exhale. Round of applause for Josh. Josh, did it work? Don't have to answer that. Great. Hannah, would you like a turn? Now listen very carefully. Josh, listen very carefully. Did that work?
No.
No. Did it help at all?
Not really.
Not really. Hands up if you think that would work. Hands up if you're pretty sure it doesn't work. Great. Listen very carefully. If it doesn't work, why do you do it to yourself? Do you know that voice in your head? That every time you do that dumb thing, I'm an idiot, I'm stupid, I shouldn't do that, I have to stop it, I'm such a failure, I keep blowing it. Do you know that voice in your head? You all have a little ultra-Orthodox Hasidic guy in your head. Hands up if you know the voice I'm referring to. Hands up if it's consistent and incessant and about as annoying as a little ultra-Orthodox Hasidic guy. I'm really offended when you say that. Does it help? No. Does it ever make you suddenly change or grow? Sometimes. It's not the voice that does that. So if it doesn't help, why do we do it to ourselves? You know what the answer to that is? Before I tell you the answer, I want to thank Josh for playing. Here's $100. Go buy yourself something nice to smoke. There you go. What's that? Because I didn't say it yet. I didn't say it yet. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you for coming. I know something you don't know. The reason we do that is because we live with a very false assumption about reality. And that is, I should be able to do what I know to be true. And we don't realize that you are actually born and you are actually created and designed to not be able to do what you know to be true. And that is actually the meaning of life. It's actually the most beautiful, wonderful thing in all of creation. But if you don't understand it, you're going to kill yourself and beat yourself. Rav Yisrael Salanta, the founder of the Mussar movement, explains this idea with the following statement, that the longest distance in the world between 2 points is between the head and the heart. What does the head represent in that statement? What's that? Reason, knowledge, what else? What's that? Logic. No, not yet. I see where you're going with that whole exile thing. Not yet. Intellect, values, knowledge, wisdom, the sum accumulation of all you know to be true. What does the heart represent? What's that? Emotions, desire, what else? Feelings. Just because you know something to be true, the mystics actually say that the reason that the head is here and the heart is here, but there's a bottleneck, so to speak, between the information, the knowledge we have, because the purpose of life is v'yadata hayam v'hashevasa el levavecha, to take what you know and put it on your heart. You see, if you didn't have that distance, you'd be an automatically perfect person. If you were an automatically perfect person, there would be no growth, no development. no empowerment. There would be no you to choose and to change, to go in the level, to go to the heights, to go to the places that your will wants you to go. And all of Judaism, all of this Torah is, of self-development. Judaism does say you have to learn. You have to acquire information. You have to go to classes. For sure you do, but that's only the first step. But after that, the goal is v'yadata hayam. You should take that knowledge and you should put it onto your heart. You should put it into your kishkas. You then have to do the real hard work to inculcate the wisdom that you've acquired. And if you don't, you're nothing. In fact, if you don't, some sources say you're worse because before you didn't know, but now you know and you don't do it. And this is the essence of Musa and a tremendous amount of Chassidut, is the capacity of how do we transfer that information from here to here. But if you don't realize that, you're going to be killing yourself every day. You're going to be hating yourself every day. I can't believe I didn't. I can't believe I don't learn. I can't believe I keep failing. I keep blowing this relationship, keep blowing those responsibilities, blowing my punctuality, blowing my job, blowing my spiritual commitments, blowing my integrity. I hate myself. I'm ridiculous because there's a voice that's in denial of reality. And it assumes that you should be like an angel and change instantaneously. It doesn't realize that it takes work, it takes effort, but you can work hard but not work smart. And the idea of most of Chassidus is how do you take that information and put it into yourself to transform yourself? That's the real goal of that. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Any questions? Hannah? Yes?
Is it about transforming passivity, which is when we're sitting here just listening to the voice, but reacting
Yes.
to action?
It's more than passivity.
Action, as in making that actual change. It's much easier to sit there and listen.
Yes.
And absorb those negative feelings than to actually get up off your chair and make a positive change, a physical.
Good. And if you can't do that, will you get upset with yourself?
People get very frustrated.
Yes, but does that help? So it is about a transference of knowledge to action. But before we get to action, which represents the heart, which represents the hand, we have to inculcate it into our emotional, desire-based responses. And that's a whole discussion of how you do it. You can teach people to do it in a very short time in a very empowered way. But sadly, or ironically, that's not tonight's discussion. You guys still with me? Now I'm taking it to the next level, and this is even more interesting. I'm going to ask you a very weird question now, and I want you to think deeply about what I'm going to say. This sounds like such a stupid question, you just want to dismiss it. But the secrets to your life, the challenges to your life are in this question. You ready? Why can't you just do what you know to be true? Why can't you just do it? Why don't you just do it?
Because we also like pleasure, and sometimes this is what's true and good, that it's not pleasure.
I also like pleasure, and I also want that thing, but I know what's valuable, just do it. What's your name again? Basha. Can you do me a favor? Just put your hand up. Could you just wiggle your fingers? Could you just put your hand on the head of the person in front of you?
Doesn't mind.
She doesn't mind. Okay, so what we learned something is very impressive about Basha. Does anyone notice that? She's in complete control of her body. Did you see all those fancy moves she can pull off? So she has the capacity. Now do this, do this. Do this, Basha. You ready? Now do this. Now do this. And now put your hand in the pocket. Now wiggle your thumbs like this. So watch what Basha just did. She learned how to pull her hand away from that sweet, delicious food, to put her hand in a pocket or to wiggle her fingers. She has the technical capacity to move her hand. That's fantastic. So here's a $1 million question. If I know something to be true, why can't I just move my body to act upon it? And before you answer, I'm going to give you a very deep answer right now. And it's a very weird answer, and it's a very surprising answer. But I don't want to give it to you in information. I want to give it to you in your body. I want to give it to you in your consciousness. I want you to learn to have compassion for yourself. The Balatanya writes that on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, our goal of the days is to awaken God's compassion upon us, because none of us are perfect, except for us religious people. And why are you laughing? And when we step before Hashem, we're kind of going in there, we're trying to own up, fess up to our challenges in life. But as we go in there, we know we're not perfect, we've blown it, there's plenty of things we've blown. So we want Hashem to be compassionate Anna, you know what? How do you awaken Hashem's compassion? The Baal Tanya says something unbelievable. He says, have compassion on yourself. If you can have compassion on yourself, then mida keneged mida, you awaken Hashem's rachamim in the higher world. Isn't that an amazing idea? It doesn't mean accept your stuck state, but it means acknowledge the challenges you've had in getting to where you are. And with that energy, compassion, you can turn yourself around. With self-hate and depression and anger, you just tear yourself apart. I'm going to teach you how to have a little compassion on yourself because I want you to understand, why can't you just move your hand to do that thing? Why can't you just leave 20 minutes earlier? I have the keys to the car. I have the lock to the door. I can just set my alarm. I don't want to smoke as much. I just will move my hand away. I'll just put that in the cupboard. I'll just give that to my friend for a day, for another day. It's not impossible, but why can't we? I don't know, because we don't, because of habits. What does that mean, habits? I know it's right, just don't. So I'm going to do a very weird exercise with you now. This is very weird. Can you guys handle this? You need a little energy. Can people just shake out in their chair or do some kind of work? We're going to do a little experiment. This is very, very weird. We're going to do a 3-part meditation. Anyone ever done meditation before, anybody? Cool, great. And this gets progressively weird. This is definitely one of the weirdest things you've ever done the night before Rosh Hashanah. I don't know what that means either. I need everyone, first of all, to put everything out of their hands. I need everyone also to make sure that all their phones are off. If you've never done that before, they have an app that can do that now, can turn your phone off. It's very high-tech and cutting edge. So here we go. Listen very carefully. We're going to do a 3-stage meditation. This is not a normal meditation. The goal is not to get you high. It's a goal to understand your consciousness. And it gets progressively weirder. But I want to introduce you to take you into ground zero in your mind of what happens when there's something you want to do but you don't do it. I want you to understand experientially, internally, what happens in there. You guys got that? Now, you've probably heard about all these kind of different meditations like expanded consciousness, mochen gadlus, or constricted consciousness, mochen katnus, or higher levels of consciousness, or lower levels of consciousness. So I want to begin to just play around with that. I'm going to do some things in the next few minutes to trigger different parts of your mind, because I want to open up your mind to experience what happens on the schism, in the moment of dichotomy between knowledge and action. So it goes like this. Here's the first level, level 1. First of all, I need someone. Does someone have a watch with a second hand? Do you have a watch with a second hand? Watch with a second. Can I borrow yours? Okay. This is what we're going to do. Exercise number 1 of 3 parts. So much for the green screen, hey? Sorry, guys. I need everyone right now to choose one value, one truth that they absolutely believe in. I don't care if it's Jewish. I don't care if it's secular. What's that? Okay, great. That'll do it. It could be something like love, peace, truth, kindness. It can be anything at all that you hold to be true, that you hold to be absolutely a good thing in the world, that you would like to see in the world. I need you to choose one. I hope you have more than one to choose from. One is plenty enough right now. Choose it clearly. Hands up when you got it. Cool. Does anyone not have any values they hold to be true? Do I have to put a gun to your head to find them? Hopefully not. Wonderful. I'm going to do the following thing. I'm going to help you relax for about 60 seconds. At the end of 60 seconds, hopefully you're a bit more relaxed. I'm going to request that you focus on the value for 60 seconds more. You're going to have your eyes closed. You're going to be very relaxed. I'm going to count back down from 5 to 1. And when I get to 1, I'm going to say, focus on the value. And for 60 seconds, I want you to think about as much as you can. Don't stress yourself. Just the value. Now, there's many things you can do in there. You can just say the word to yourself to connect to it, to feel to it, right? You could just spell out the word and imagine it. You could imagine yourself doing, if it's kindness, giving to people. You can imagine a time in your life where somebody did kindness to you and it felt fantastic. You can imagine teaching a class to it, teaching it to the world. Imagine the whole world living in that state. Anything you want. If meditation is hard for you, just keep repeating the word in your head like a mantra. You guys think you can handle this? Now, this is at the beginning, because it's going to get weirder as we go. So here we go. I want you to put everything out of your hands. I want you to uncross your arms and your legs. I want you to sit up straight in your chair. And this is an adventure now. I'm not trying to get you into a deep state. There's other techniques we use for that. All I want you to try and do is, to the best you can, besimcha, simply, easily enjoy and experience and connect a little to this value that you have. There's worse things you could be doing the night before Rosh Hashanah. So here we go. I want you to close your eyes if you're comfortable with that. If you find it very difficult to close your eyes, you can just choose a place on the floor or something in front of you and just choose to lock in your eyes and stare at that. We can hear some noises happening around us. That's totally okay. Just acknowledge the noise is there and then come back to your focus. So I want you to right now to allow your body to relax. If you're watching this in video world, you're welcome to do the same thing along with us. Just allow your body to relax. If some part of it feels tense, you can just loosen it up, shake it up. Loosen it up, shake it out. You can totally move any way you need to move. It's totally great, totally fine. I want you to focus right now on your shoulders and allow your shoulders to relax. Allow your shoulders to relax. Allow your shoulders to feel loose and warm and relaxed. As much as they can is great. I want you to focus right now coming down your torso, the front and the back. Allow your torso to relax, especially your back and your lower back. Just be aware of it. Whatever it's feeling is totally fine. Whatever it's feeling is totally okay and totally fine. Allow your back to feel loose and warm and relaxed. Loose and warm and relaxed. Coming down your hips, to your legs, to your ankles. Allow all your legs from top to bottom to relax, to relax, to relax. Great. Whatever's happening is fine. Your ankles now, your feet feel warm and relaxed. Your feet feel warm and relaxed. Your toes feeling heavy and warm and relaxed. Your feet and your legs now are all feeling heavy and warm and relaxed. Whatever you're doing is great. Coming back up to your shoulders, down your arms, allow your arms to feel relaxed. Your wrists and hands and fingers are relaxing, are heavy and warm and relaxed. Your hands are warm and relaxed. Allow it to happen. You can allow it to happen. Focusing on your head, allow your head to feel warm and relaxed. Your temples feel relaxed. Your jaw feels relaxed. Your cheeks are relaxing and relaxed. Right now, I want you to take a very deep inhale with me. All the way in. Keep going all the way in, and hold it. And hold it. Good. Exhale slowly and deeply, all the way out. Push it out and wait. And wait. Okay, slow and deep in. Here we go. Do that now. Beautiful. Slowly and deeply in, and hold it when you get in. It's totally great. And wait. Okay, out slowly. Here we go. Exhale all the way out. Wonderful. Come back to normal breathing. Keeping your eyes closed, I want you to know whatever you're feeling, whatever your state that you're in, is totally fine and totally sufficient to do this exercise. I'm going to give you right now 60 seconds to do something very simple and very beautiful, very easy. I just want you to remember your value, that thing you hold to be beautiful and true. And I want you to focus on it with all your mind and heart for 60 seconds. Just begin by saying it to yourself a few times. You can imagine yourself experiencing it, teaching it, sharing it. Remember a time when it happened to you. Focus on just the feeling it creates in your body. Just 60 seconds. It's very, very simple. And just enjoy that experience. You can do this. It's the easiest thing in the world. You were born to do this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enjoy your value. Wonderful. Take a deep breath. Now open your eyes when you're ready. Welcome back to reality. Hands up if you're able to do that more or less. Cool. Hands up if it was nice in there for you. Hands up if it was pretty awesome in there. Cool. Hands up if it was a nice thing to connect to your value. You could feel it really deeply. Wonderful. That's a really awesome thing to do. It's very important to do in life. It's part of Avodas Hashem, is to be a focus on your values and have them clear. It empowers you to do those values, to follow through. But that's just the first part of the exercise. I want you to take a second and make a mental note what it felt like to be able to do that. What that feeling was. Because now we're going to rip it to shreds. Do we have the props? Yes? Can we get that right now? Hands up if you like eating chocolate cake. Great. I was hoping you would say that. We're going to do a little experiment right now. This is definitely the weirdest thing you've ever done to learn Kabbalah. There's some delicious cake coming through the room right now. I need everybody to take a piece, right? A little bowl. Here we go. Let's get these out. Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. Don't eat the cake. Okay, here it comes. Here it comes. It's coming forward this whole... Now, I need everyone to do the following thing. Can I get it? I'm going to borrow Jay's. Jay's is out of the room. I'm going to distract him by getting a tray. I want everyone to do the following things. Close your eyes for a second. That was very disturbing. Close your eyes if you can. I just want you to think of the value that you had. You ready? Now I want you to do the following thing. I want everyone to take the piece of cake. And I want you to do this right now. I want you to take the plate in your hand and pick up a good chunk of the cake. See if you can do it all. No. I want you to use your fingers if you can handle that emotionally. If you can't handle that emotionally, you can use the fork. But God won't love you as much. That's a joke. Shh. Now, as much as you can for the next 5 minutes as we do this crazy exercise, I need you to try not to talk, because talking will mess with the state we just put your mind in. I want you to do the following thing. I want you to put the cake about, you inches or centimeter people here? Center inches. Great. Wonderful. I want you to put about 15 centimeters, 30 centimeters in front of your face at eye level. You guys got that? Now, I just want you to check that out for a second. Shh. Check that out. Does it look good? Now, everyone do one thing with me. I just want, shh. Try not to talk. You'll see one in a second. I want you to bring it close to your nose. First, just get a smell. Now, put it back out there. Now, the first thing you have to know is this isn't actually kosher. It's one night before Rosh Hashanah. I'm going to leave the room. You'll have to make a decision. That was like an evil laugh.
Got him.
That's the end of the class. Listen very carefully. It's kosher. But a really terrible heksha. I want you to do the following thing. I want you to know how those cars that swivel around to the ramp, you're supposed to, the first thing I want you to do, I want you to make this go through a little swivel around. And I want you to imagine if you only had one bite of this piece of the cake, what would be kind of the best angle of entry, so to speak? What would just be that place that you could just like it land on your tongue with a nose bang for your buck, even though it was free, technically speaking, okay? So I'm very serious when I say this, even I'm joking. See if you can play the game. Look at the cake right now. Stop looking at me. And I want you to imagine, just enjoy it. Imagine, wow, I could really Why, that would be a great bit. Imagine what the taste would be. Smell it again. And imagine what the taste would be of that beautiful chocolatey bit there. And just imagine it. Now, I want you to do the following. Any dancers in the room? Anyone know about Buto dancing, Japanese Buto dancing? So it's this whole kind of thing in slow motion, right? So I want you to now eat this cake Buto style without the eating part. Right. So what that means is I want you to bring this to your mouth in super slow motion. The last one wins the race, right? As if you're going to eat it. Now watch, it kind of goes like this. You kind of go like this. You go. Not joking. I want you to do it. I want you to bring it to your mouth as if you're going to eat it. And open up your mouth. And just as you're about to eat it, watch this. I'm serious when I say this. I want you to move it away from your mouth. Keep your eyes closed. And I want you to imagine biting into it and do that. And I want you to go through the whole procedure of eating it. I want you to imagine where it hits your tongue. I want you to switch. You know that bit that gets caught in the back of your teeth? That could be my mouth. I don't know. And I want you to close your eyes and actually imagine the whole thing. You ready? Don't make a joke of it with your friends. See if you can do the exercise and take it seriously. Move it slowly. Imagine the taste. Then close your eyes and imagine the eating. I want you to take 30 seconds to do that. You don't need to make anyone laugh. Enjoy it. Go now. Try. Try doing it. Try really doing it. Really close your eyes. Imagine biting into it. Imagine it's the tastiest cake you've ever had. Keep swishing around in your mouth. Wonderful. Open your eyes. Put the cake back down on the plate. Uncross your arms and legs. Sit up straight in your chair. I want everyone right now to close their eyes and go back to their value. Remember you had values? Just checking. I'm going to give you 30 seconds right now. Wonderful. I have one and you don't. 30 seconds right now. Close your eyes. Sit up straight in your chair to focus on your value. Oh, that wonderful value, that fantastic value. 30 seconds right now. Give it all you've got, all your heart and soul. But whatever you do, don't think of the cake. Shh. Go. Why is everyone smiling? Okay, point proven. Open your eyes. What happened in there? I thought your head was going to start spinning around. You're going to perhaps start projectile vomiting or something. What happened? It was hard?
Well, you can't not think about something without thinking about it.
Sure, I said don't think about it. Hands up, it was harder to think the second time than it was the first time. Really, I'm shocked. What happened? What happened? Who'd like to talk it out? Yes, you have to talk it out, I see. She was like going...
There was this pull, like salivating.
It was what? Salivating?
Yeah, for the cake.
Yeah, but I said don't think about it.
But you're not right. And so, in order not to think about it, you keep thinking about it.
No, but I said don't think about it.
And you can't.
You idiot, you fool, you mad, stop doing it.
And so you really get into that space where you're trying to think of what you know to be your truth.
Right.
Value, but
Something is pulling. Hands up if you felt pulled. You felt pulled in there. Hands up if one of the things you were pulled by was the cake. Okay, anyone else care to describe an experience similar to that? Something like that was like? Anyone? Hannah, did you feel that? No, you were lamalum in a cake. Understood. Yes, watch girl. Yes.
My value became associated with the cake.
Oh, I love this the one. Hands up if that worked for you. This is my favorite one. No, my values didn't change. They just kind of... What was your value? What was your value? Kindness. What was your value?
Authentic honesty.
Authentic honesty. Oh no, that's of course so connected to cake.
Do I sincerely actually want to eat the cake?
Oh. Now, I'm not going to break down everybody's room psychologically right now, but I have to let you know something. These are my favorite things in life, saying, no, my values never become corrupted. This was my value to begin with. A lot of people say kindness. That's why I assume kindness there incorrectly, right? People go, kindness. Well, what were you imagine? I imagine giving out cake to everybody. It didn't change my values. Most of our lives are based on phenomena where we're convinced our values did not change, but our values got totally bent and distorted by our desires. But if it would have completely changed, we would have been up to it. So the Yetzer Hara kind of just bends it towards that, right? And we're trapped in the cake reality, but we're not aware of it. Okay, that was exercise number 2. Here's the third part, and this is the really weird part. You guys up for this? Okay, you're going to find out what happens to you now, why it is that you can't do something you know to be true, and it's pretty scary. I don't know if you can handle this. You can't handle the truth. Everyone do the following thing. Pick up the cake, preferably if you can handle this emotionally, in your hand. And if you can't, you're really going to have to, there's no way you can do this without having it in your hand. Now, we're going to do the following exercise. You ready? First of all, hands up if you usually make a blessing before you eat food. Okay, if you usually make a blessing, I want you to take literally right now the smallest possible amount, literally a mushroom, literally a dot. I want you to make a blessing and swallow it without tasting it very much. Just do that right now. If you usually make a blessing and just eat the smallest amount. Just swallow it, don't need to taste it. Great. Now we got the religious stuff out of the way. Listen very carefully. We're going to do a little exercise right now. This is very weird, but you need to pay attention to get the exercise down. You ready? What we're going to do is we're going to have the cake in our hands, but we're going to have our hands down towards the plate. And you're going to have your eyes closed. And I'm going to help you relax. And after relaxing you for a few seconds, I'm going to get you for 30 seconds to think about your value. And for 30 seconds, I want you to think about, she's finished before we even begun. Hold in there. For 30 seconds, I want you to think about your value. And after 30 seconds, with your eyes still closed, I'm going to say the magic words. I don't know if you remember this. I'm going to say, eat the chocolate cake. Do you think you can remember that cue? When I say eat the chocolate cake, listen very carefully. What you're going to do is, you're going to, with your eyes closed, still thinking of your value, raise the cake up to your mouth, put it in your mouth, and begin to eat it. And as you begin to eat it, listen very carefully. I want you to enjoy it. I want you to savor it. I want you to savor its delicious, sweet sensation. It's like there's a party in your mouth and everyone's invited. But as you're eating the cake and savoring it, I want you to still be focused on the value and still appreciating your value and still connecting your value. Don't tell me I was so connected to the value, so I just chose to ignore the cake. I want you to celebrate cake. Why deny the physical world? God also made the physical world. Right? This is Tel Aviv after all. So I want you to eat the cake, savor the cake, but at the same time focus 100% on your value. And I want you to be Adam. I want you to be witnesses of what happens in there. No points for guessing what's going to happen. This is not a class in information. This is a class in experience. I want you to witness and watch. Pay attention. One more time, listen carefully. You're going to have the cake in your hand. You're going to have the candle on the plate. I'm going to help you relax for 30 seconds. At the end of 30 seconds, I'm going to count back down from 5 to 1. I'm going to say, start your meditation. Listen very carefully. That's not the time to put your cake in your mouth. No matter how many times I teach the class all around the world, I say, yours are the second, it's the second, watch for the cake, and I say, start your value meditation. There's always a girl in the front row that just goes, and like takes it down. Don't be that girl in the front row, Moshe, okay? So here we go. That's one. So the first thing is just 30 seconds to focus on your value. You do that, right? At the end of 30 seconds, I'm going to say the cue. What's the cue? Eat the cake, right? One Talmud Chacham in the room. Here we go. At that moment, listen very carefully. You raise the cake to your mouth. You begin to eat it. Listen carefully. Don't open your eyes to see the cake. You don't have to open your eyes. I promise you, you will not poke your eye out with the cake. It will find its way to the mouth. We've never lost an eye before in this class, but there's always a bunch of people that have to go. Guide it home. It'll be fine. I want you to keep your mind on the value, enjoy the value, connect to it, eat the cake, savor the cake. And then listen carefully, keep eating, keep valuing, have another bite, keep going, keep in there, learn. What's the difference between the beginning and end of a bite? What's the difference when all the different, the chewing it? What's the difference? Keep going, keep enjoying the cake. And we're going to report back and talk about what we experienced in there. No point for guessing what's going to happen. Are you guys ready? Sit up straight on your chairs. Uncross your arms and your legs. And here we go. Remember your values. Never forget them. Close your eyes. Allow your body to relax. Allow your shoulders to relax. If you need to shaken something up, shaken something out, loosen it up, it's totally fine. Allow your body to totally relax, totally relax. I want you to take a very deep inhale with me right now. Go. Deep inhale. Go all the way in. Doing great. All the way in. Hold it. 2, 3. Slow, deep exhale. Go. Out. 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 Push it all out and wait. 2, 3. And in. Slow and deep in. Beautiful. Slow and deep in. All the way in and hold it. And out. And push it out and hold it. And in. Slowly and deeply in. All the way in. All the way in. And hold it. Beautiful. Out. Push it out. Slow and deep. Wonderful. Okay, come back to normal breathing. You're going to do this totally fine, totally great. The first 30 seconds, just focusing on your value, repeating it, connecting to it, loving it, visualizing it, yourself doing it at the time you experienced it. Then when we're done with that, I'm going to give you the cue to eat the cake. You'll lift the cake to your mouth without opening your eyes. You'll enjoy the cake, savor the cake, learn all about the nuances and the tastes of all the different parts of the cake, and at the same time love and connect to your value. And as all that is happening, watch and learn. Pay attention to your mind and your heart and your consciousness. It's the most important lesson you can ever learn. Value meditation. You can do this. It's simple and easy. You were born to do this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Value. Eat the cake. Focus on the depth and truth and power of your value. Savor all the subtleties of the cake. Watch what's happening. Have another bite, see what happens still. Okay, point proven. Swallow, take a breath, open your eyes. Now if you can handle this emotionally, put the food down for a second. Don't worry, you'll finish it up. Hands up if that was hard to do. Okay, who would like to talk about what happened in there? Listen carefully, because something very deep is about to happen. We're not done yet. I'm trying to take you somewhere that you don't quite see coming yet. So stay with me. Are you ready? What happened in there? Who would like to describe? Yes, ma'am.
There was no emotional contradiction.
There was no emotional contradiction, but what happened in your focus?
The value remained higher
Right.
than the desire.
I'm sure it did, but I don't want a judgment of higher or lower.
Okay.
What happened when the cake hit your mouth buds, your taste buds?
It was
A pleasure. What kind of pleasure? A good one. Okay. And then what happened to your value during that pleasure at that same moment? It elevated. Okay, that's an interesting discussion. Hands up if that happened for you. Okay. What happened to everybody else in Tel Aviv when that happened? Okay, so that's an interesting discussion. What happened? Hands up if something else totally different happened to you. Who would like to talk about that? Alana?
Yeah.
Was that? Go on.
I couldn't focus on anything other than the cake and the taste of the cake. And then
Hands up if you couldn't focus on anything else during the cake experience and other than the... Okay, fine. What happened in there?
and then I would try, when you would say focus on your value, I would for a second go back to it, and then I just couldn't focus on
Hands up if that's something like that happened to you. Fine. Hands up if what happened is as you went to eat the cake, you were like, I'm not going to focus on... And then you were under, and then you were kind of like, okay, I have to get back to my value, a value, and then like something else popped in your mouth. You know, you bit into it, and then you went underwater again. Hands up if that's what it was like for you. It was like coming in out of water. Who can describe that experience for us? Anyone wants to describe that? Brother Andy, yes?
Just like it's very smooth, and so you're just kind of like pushing around your mouth. And
Right?
and because of that, you're not thinking anything else. You're just thinking of
Right.
smoothness and
The smoothness of the cake. Did anyone have that after they swallowed, they said for a second, now I have to get back to my value? Did anyone have a moment where it was like, what was my value again? Something like that? Did anyone have a second where they had to find it? What was that like? Anyone else care to describe the inner experience for a second? Anyone else? Yes?
I just realized that my value is about other people and that the cake is all about me and somebody like all about me. And
It's all about you. The cake is a very self-focused thing. Now listen very carefully to this. This is very carefully. So hands up if you could relate to the fact that there was a kind of a battle, a kind of division between the two. Hands up if you felt that. Hands up if you felt it was hard to focus on your value when the desire kicked up. Hands up if you felt that. Hands up if you felt that after the desire was swallowed, it was possible to go back to the value a bit more. Right? Fine. Listen very carefully to this. How many parts of our consciousness did we just experience? All of them. If you think that's true, it's time you get the heck out of Tel Aviv. That's my first personal piece of advice to you, okay? 3, 1. If you say 1, come with me back home to Jerusalem tonight. Here we go. Listen very carefully. Just think about it. It's very, very simple. What parts were they? What's that? Well, let's just break this down. One part of your consciousness was focused on your values, right? I see my value, I can connect to my value. Now, by the way, sometimes people say the following thing. Did anyone experience this? I had my value. In fact, when I ate my cake, I still had my value, but I couldn't connect to it in like the same three-dimensional kind of way. Hands up if you had that. So it was kind of there like a mantra, like a piece of dogma I'm just repeating to myself, but it was no longer immersive. So that itself is very, very profound and worthy of a class and discussion unto itself. So the first level of experience of our consciousness is our values, right? That place where I can know something, connect to it. 1. The second part of our consciousness we experienced was the cake part of our consciousness, which is also known as desire, which is also known as our midot, our desires, right? So we have values and we have desires. Here's the interesting part. What happens when you have a value and your desire is stimulated? What happens to your value consciousness? You forget it. That's an interesting word Kabbalistically. In fact, we just used that word at the beginning. It's forgotten.
I felt that I needed a lot more energy to
You need more energy to exert to keep it there, but if you don't put that energy in, it kind of becomes forgotten. What else was it like? What other words would you use to describe that experience?
I felt the cake.
What's that? It's silenced. It's forgotten. How else would you describe it? Would you know what yes, over here, yes.
I just want to make sure that we can get to the third part about the desire being met with the value and being elevated.
That's called halot machshavas. It's an incredible secret to learn how we do. But most people, if you found that your value was not at all taken away by the desire, that's probably because chocolate cake is not such a big thing in your life.
No, it is.
But what's your name? Nuria? Is chocolate thing such a big thing in your life? It's a huge thing in your life. Right. But were you paying attention to what I was saying before? But you were putting up your hands, so you're a bit distracted because you wanted to tell me something. So, Yes. So because some things that when you get upset about or frustrated about it that you want to, that takes us away from our value. So elevation of desires is one of the biggest discussion themes by the Baal Shem Tov. And it's an incredible thing. We teach people their skills. But to know how to do that, you have to begin to acknowledge the first level of the battle. Now listen very carefully. We described it as unconscious, unaware, asleep. This is how the mystics describe it. First you have a value. Then your desire comes up and your conscious, your awareness, your values go to sleep. They are in exile. Exile is not a geographical condition. The definition of exile means disconnection from my truth, disconnection from my home, disconnection from knowledge of true self. Listen very carefully. First you have value, then your desire comes up, and then you go to sleep. Your da'as, your dat, goes into exile. Once you savor the desire and you feel it, then you remember yourself. Then you awaken to yourself and you return to your value. That's galus, galut, and then geula, to return to ourself, to return to our mindfulness, to return to our source consciousness. Hands up if you experienced that. Hands up if you want to say yes, but you lost your arms in the last hour and you're trying to vote. Hands up if you experienced what I meant. Yes or no? Let's see your hands. Fine. So you have the values, you have your belief, but you lose awareness of that. When the desire goes down, you can return to that. The Jewish people live in Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim. We go out to the four corners of the world. We forget our nation. We forget our heritage. We're unconscious. We're asleep. Right? We're in exile. Exile is not a geographical situation. It's a situation of consciousness. It's a challenge of consciousness. But there's an awakening, a remembering, and then a return. Listen very carefully. This is not really a class, surprisingly, about eating chocolate cake. This is true of any desire, value, contradiction you have in your life. Why can't you do something that you know to be true? When you have a value, listen very carefully, this is very deep, see if you get this. When you have a value and a desire comes up, right, this idea of dat begalut is constantly in all our lives. It's not just about eating chocolate cake. Everybody right now, think back when I asked you 4.5 hours ago when we began this class, think of one thing you know to be true but you never do. Hands up if you can remember what that was. What was the thing you said? So watch what a prophet I am. Watch what a nave I am. I can tell you why there's something that you know to be true but you don't do it. Because in that situation, you have a particular desire. And the reason people beat themselves up, I really should do that, I really should do that, I really should do that, oh, I didn't do it, I'm such an idiot, I really should do it, I didn't do it, I'm such an idiot, is because they think that the value is enough. But the truth of Musa and the truth of Chassidus is no matter how much you know something, it won't help unless you deal with the desire. So the first point in self-change and self-development as Musa is to not identify the value, but to identify the desire. Because as long as the desire comes up and you're not aware of it, you're unconscious of it, you're unconscious in general, especially to it, you can't deal with it. The reason I know I should honor my mother, but every time she opens up her mouth, I'm like, right? Is because she makes me feel angry, hurt, defensive, whatever. So telling yourself I have to love my mother won't help until you can become mindful, conscious, aware, and focused on the root of that desire. So just to play that game, think right now of that thing that you know to be true, but you never ever do. Take 10 seconds right now. Can you identify the root emotion within that causes you to compromise that value or sabotage your true beliefs? Okay, it may take more than 2 seconds thought. At least 4 seconds for some people. If you're not punctual, it's not because you don't value people. What emotionally is coming up in there that doesn't allow me to do that? Whenever you have a situation in life where you don't do the thing you know to be true, then you know for sure the desire in you. The first step is to find, identify, and don't yell at yourself. Identify the root. Hamtakas adinim hi b'shavasham. If you want to transform yourself, you have to go to the root of the challenge, the desire itself. You guys got that? So here comes the interesting part of the class. This is not a class on chocolate cake. This is not a class on smoking weed. It's not a class on not being punctual. This is a deeper lesson that I want you to realize. We've just realized a simple point, that when you have a value, you have a belief, and your desire is stimulated, your value, your da'at, goes into gullet. You got that? Great. Here's the heavy part. That's what happens with one desire. Oh, my mother said X. Oh, I had to be on time. Oh, that cake looks delicious. Oh, that person I love really annoyed me. The desire comes up. I lose my awareness and value. The desire goes down. I go back to life. But you know, some desires don't pass so fast. If you take the rule that we just learned, then it's a very simple extension to imagine the following thing. What would happen, theoretically, hypothetically speaking, if you were born into a society, a culture, a city, a reality, where every second, all the time, their job was to stimulate your desires? From the time you wake up in the morning, that song on the radio, trying to sell something, pitch something, I have to get out of bed, I have to be at that job, I have to drink the coffee, I have to impress this person, I have to show this thing, I have to buy that thing, I have to sell that thing. What would happen if you were born in a society, a culture, where every second, every post you see, every image you see, everything that you're doing, all the technology in our ears, our iPod, our iPhone, our iPods, our Facebook, oh, I have to buy, I have to sell, I have to inquire, I have to look as pretty as that poster, I have to lose weight because I don't want to look as ugly as that person on the before picture of that poster, right? That person looks so successful, they have that car, they have that image, they have that suntan. What would happen if you were born into a society where every second, all the time, it wants to stimulate your desires? What do you think? Not speaking religiously, just an extension of one simple rule that we learned. What would happen to a person that lived in a city, a reality where every day, all the time, their desires were stimulated? Would anyone like to guess? They would not just forget their values, they would forget their entire consciousness of values. They would have no awareness of self at all. They would have no awareness of their values at all. Because some values last, well, I want that food, I want that dinner, I saw the Pizza Hut ad, now I need a pizza, go to the pizza, I have to eat that pizza. But some values, some desires, my friends, go on forever. I have to prove to people that I'm worthy. I have to show my friends from high school I'm not an idiot. I have to show my dad that I can conquer the world. I have to prove to everyone I can success. I have to show everyone I'm not that ugly girl that I was, now I'm beautiful. Those things never vanish. Those things go on for decades. If a person lived in a society that constantly, for whatever capitalistic reason, promoted by desire, you need to achieve, you need to sell, you need to buy, you need to look, you need to achieve, it's possible a person could live for decades with no awareness of themselves, no awareness of their truth, no awareness of their value. Have you ever heard of this crazy term called a midlife crisis?
Been there.
Been there. Done that. So I'm teaching at Asia Torah. I don't actually teach that anymore for a bunch of years. But one time I'm teaching at Asia Torah, and there's a student that comes to me and says, my dad's in town from America. Can he sit in one of your classes? I say, sure, great. Lama lo. Why not? Lama lo, as we say in America. So he comes in to sit in the class, right? And I'm giving this class, and I talk about midlife crisis. I say, you know what it's like when you have a midlife crisis, and you're 40 years old, and suddenly you're 45, you leave your wife, and you go out with your 19-year-old secretary, and you buy yourself a red sports car. And right when I say that, this guy just gets up and storms out of the classroom. Seriously. So the student comes up to me, my friend Jochen, he says, why did you say that? Why did you have to say that? And I was like, what do you mean? He says, what do you think my dad's doing here in Israel? He just left my wife. Who's my wife? That's a very weird marriage. Lots of philosophical questions. He just left his wife. He literally went out as secretary. He said, but he didn't buy a red sports car. He bought a red beach buggy. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? So his father was furious. His father asked to meet with me. So we had this very heated conversation. You don't understand. You understand what you're saying. You rabbi should say. But after a while, we were talking, right? And I basically said to him, what happened to you? How could you do that? He's not an idiot. He's not a stupid person. We're not stupid. We're just unconscious. So I said to him, how could you do that? And he said to me something, I'm not saying this is right, I'm not saying this justifies it, but just to have compassion for other human beings. He said, there's one day I opened my eyes, and I looked around, I said, whose life is this? Whose home is this? I never wanted to be this job. I never wanted to be stuck in this house. And I said, I've been married for years. I'm in this job I don't like. I said, what were you thinking the whole time? What were you thinking the whole time? And you know what he said? Nothing. There's a woman in my family, a wonderful woman, who was married to someone else in my family, married for many years. They were like the ideal role model couple. They were beautiful, they were successful, they were upstanding citizens of the Jewish community. They had 2.5 kids, like all the cliches. 2 kids and a little 0.5, half a kid running around, right? And they were like, it was fantastic. And one day, after 20-something years married, listen very carefully, they announced they were getting divorced. And we were all totally shocked. Nobody saw it coming. Now, she actually, I would never had much of a connection with her. She came to visit me in Israel. I had no connection. She spent a Shabbos at our house. And I went for a walk in our neighborhood after Shabbos, and we were talking after Shabbos meal. And I said, Jenny, what happened? She said to me the following thing. She said, 6 weeks into our marriage, he lost all control and became violent. And I realized that I married, like, abusive husband. I said, Jenny, you were married for 23 years. Why didn't you leave earlier? And she says to me something phenomenal. She said, I don't know. This woman has multiple PhDs. She works in a high position for the Australian government. You don't know? Are you dumb? Are you stupid? Are you an idiot? No, you can be wonderful and valuable, but your dat is in Galat. That means you're not aware because you've lost yourself in a world of desire. You've lost yourself in a world of chocolate cake. Listen very carefully. It's not such a leap to understand our friend Schneeweiss. Remember Schneeweiss? Schneeweiss one time had to have a Jew do something not nice to him. One time, some guy spat on him or something upset him and he saw something, and the anger develops and the hate develops, and he could do something for years and years and years. It becomes his habit, it becomes his culture, it becomes his hashkafa. He rationalizes, he justifies, he believes in it, and he finds himself in unbelievable things. And one day there's a gun to your head. What are you thinking when there's a gun to your head? Absolutely nothing at all. All your values, all your rationalizations, all your justifications, all your dreaming, all your chocolate eating disappears, and you fall back on the truth of who you are. He wasn't taught new information. He awakened to his true self, which was just asleep in exile. You guys follow what I'm saying? So now I have something really interesting to tell you. Have you ever heard this stuff that rabbis who pretend to teach Kabbalah talk about, like we all have a soul? You have a godly, divine soul with supernatural knowledge. And what does that mean? Where is that? And it's floating around my head. And I'm telling you the truth. The truth is it has supernatural wisdom. It understands your challenges, understands solutions. It has supernatural wisdom about yourself, your destiny. Rabbi, I'm looking for myself. How do I know what I'm supposed to be doing in the world? Isn't it weird that you don't know what you're supposed to be doing in the world? If you're here to fulfill some divine mission, why doesn't God tell you? The answer is He does tell you. You should know it. It's in your soul. But I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm lost. I'm looking for myself. What even does that mean, looking for yourself? How can you lose yourself? Oh, I think I had myself in the room. Has anyone seen myself? But we know what that means. I don't know who I am, what I'm supposed to be doing. What if I told you had a soul, and that soul had a unique vision, potential, understanding of the reality, divine knowledge of your truth, of your destiny? Why don't you know that? Where is that information? How do I know it's there? Can you prove to me there's a God? There's godliness within you. How can you not know it's there? I'll tell you how you can not know it's there. Whose watch was this? What's your name? What's that? Moran. Wonderful. Can you help me out with a little experiment for a second? You can handle this? This is your watch?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, it is. Now I'm going to break this just to awaken some desire. I want you to do something. You ready? Give me 1 second. We open it. Wonderful. I'm going to ask you some questions about this watch, about what it feels like. So I want you to feel every different part of it. I want you to get to know all this stuff. Let me know when you've done that. Take a couple of seconds. Take a couple of seconds. I want you to feel the watch very carefully in all its detail. Okay, Moran, you ready? Good. Well, it's very simple, very simple. You got it? What are you feeling right now?
Emotionally?
No, what are you feeling right now?
Physically? Smooth glass, rough edges, 3 bumps on the side.
Great. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can you feel the chair underneath you?
Yes.
Can you feel the hair on around your neck?
Not really.
Focus on it. Can you feel
Oh,
the hair?
that hair. Yes, I can feel that.
Can you feel the glasses on your nose or on your ears? Great. So when I asked you, what are you feeling? Why did you tell me about the watch?
I don't know. I don't remember.
What's the answer to that question?
Went to exile.
Is because I focused her on it, right? Listen very carefully. I asked her what she was feeling. She told me all about the watch. But at the same time, she was feeling the chair, she was feeling the clothes, she was probably feeling emotionally awkward about being in front of you all. But even though she was feeling all of that, she wasn't aware she was feeling all of that because her attention was on the watch. What if, as the mystical writings teach us, right now you have incredible supernatural knowledge and wisdom and clarity pouring into you about God and truth and reality and destiny, and you have that, but you're so focused on the world, you're so focused on your body, you're so focused on buying and selling, you're so focused on the sushi night and the chocolate cake that you've just never been taught how to shift your focus back to become aware of yourself. But it really would be simple as shifting your focus. You can learn how to do that, but the whole world is fighting against that nature because our dat is in galut. The Rambam teaches us that when the shofar blows, the shofar is a voice without any expression. It's a kol pashut. And its goal is it awakens your true self. And for a few minutes every year, when the shofar blows, a person has the power, is given the gift of memory, is given the gift of awakening, is given the gift of true self-knowledge, is given the gift of screaming with a voice back to Hashem, let me fulfill my divine destiny. The only way it works is as the voice sounds of the shofar, you turn to Hashem and you scream back, help me wake up. Help me put down the chocolate cake, the iPhone, the iPod, the job, the desire, the need for love, for approval, my fears and my doubts, and everything in my life which is blinding me, numbing me, blocking me from remembering the godliness within me, the divinity within me, the destiny within me. What you have within you is beyond your imagination. What Hashem wants to give you in the next year is beyond your imagination, but He can only give it to you when you turn to Him from your soul and not your desire. And that's what the Rambam is teaching us. When the shofar sounds, you have to scream to yourself, wake up. Wake up. Who am I really? If I set myself free of this world of desire, of my expectations, of my fears, of my lust, of my egos, of my justifications, of my rationalizations, who could I really be? The mystics teach that the moment the shofar is blown is the moment your soul is reborn for the new year. It's a moment of conception. And your capacity to release the desires of this world creates a womb, an openness to receive something holier and more profound than you ever imagined possible. Wake up, sleepers, from your sleep. Remember your true self. Bring yourself out of exile. Return to the Jerusalem in your consciousness. You can live in Tel Aviv, but in your head and your heart be in Yerushalayim. But to do that, you have to let go of this world, let go of the cake, let go of the watch. You have to be willing to say, I'm willing to let it all go just for the sake of remembering my true self. And from that moment, from that place, from that time, Hashem can rebirth you and your full potential and your full destiny. Hashem, help me wake up. Help me let go. Help me remember. Help me be conscious again. Help me get the heck out of exile. When the shofar blows, that is our prayer. I give you all a blessing. You should be able to find this deepest place within, this desire that transcends all desires, this inner voice of your true self, and scream and call and sound out to Hashem from that place. And I bless that He hears you and blesses you and loves you and gives you every kind of bracha and ruchnis and gashmis to give you all an extraordinary, blessed new year.
Amen.